right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. A U.S. government watchdog is looking into probing the FAA's decision to move Newark's airspace to Philadelphia to address staffing shortages and congestion in the New York City traffic area. And this also comes after some serious outages there at that very important and trafficked area there as communications for air traffic controllers overseeing Newark's airspace in April and May sparked alarm. And we're getting statements here talking about this, saying these events have raised questions about the FAA's management of the relocation, including impacts on system redundancy, controller staffing, and training and operational resilience. Given these concerns, the Secretary of Transportation requested that we initiate an audit on the decision to relocate TRACON responsibilities for this airspace. So following it very closely here on Live Now from Fox, let's bring in right now with the Foundation for Aviation Safety expert, Randy Klatt. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Just from the surface level, this obviously looking into some of those outages, the relocation of this. What do you make of this audit?
Good afternoon, Andy. Thanks for having me. I think it's a good thing for sure. That move was not well thought out in the big scheme of things. That became pretty obvious as they started to have operational difficulties, which culminated in the April and May outages you just referenced. Moving controllers from Long Island, moving them 100 miles away to the Philadelphia area in order to control New York airports, specifically in this case, of course, Newark, but you have LaGuardia and Kennedy there as well. So separating that team away from the people that they'd worked next to, literally, for years was quite a move. And it was done, of course, for efficiency, for retention, for budget reasons, as the FAA has been short of controllers for years, and specifically in Newark, it was tough to retain people. I'm not sure that's really the right way to solve the problem, and obviously it has created more problems since. So I think the OIG taking a look at this is probably appropriate.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those components, and when someone that's not an expert in this doesn't deal with this day to day, it's interesting to think that Newark's maybe airspace is controlled by Philadelphia, not necessarily in the New York City kind of area. Can you explain what TRACON is, what it does, and why it is so implemented there, especially in a very congested Northeast?
Sure. TRACON would be the Terminal Radar Approach Control Facility. So when an airliner is flying from across the country and wants to go to Newark, as they leave their cruising altitudes and descend towards the city, they're going to be transitioned in communication from an en route center to the TRACON, to the approach facility. So these are controllers that control the airspace immediately around airports, sequencing all of the flights into the runways, keeping them clear of each other, of course, and sequencing them safely. So in New York, it's a pretty unique situation where you have three very large, very busy airports within only a few miles of each other. And so there are sectors set up there, and there would be some set up for controlling Newark, LaGuardia, and Kennedy. And traditionally, they were all in the same building. And so theoretically, at least you had much better communication between people that are working in the same building with each other. But now we've separated the Newark staff, 16 to 20 people that were taken out of Long Island, had to relocate to Philadelphia, which caused a lot of angst amongst them. The union was opposed to it as well. Nevertheless, they went and pretty quickly realized that there were a lot of problems. Not just that communication piece that was taken away with the coordination between the different sectors, but clearly there were communication problems, technical problems. We're still depending on copper wire to feed the information from the radar systems to Philadelphia. And of course, that's what failed in the April and May outages, where simply old infrastructure that hadn't been repaired and obviously hadn't been tested appropriately failed. And we had those 90-second or so periods with no radar or radio communications with the approaching aircraft.
Yeah, that is concerning. And like you mentioned, some of those major airports, LaGuardia, Newark, very close in proximity to it. And we talked yesterday about different sorts of things, and this isn't going to be a quick fix in the Northeast. Do you expect, are you concerned about significant delays, especially with this probe now in place?
I'm always concerned, and that's really true across the country. This is not really isolated just to the Newark area. The problems were more obvious there and more serious. But the FAA has been short of controllers literally for decades. So this is not anything new, and it's an issue of failure of oversight and failure to upgrade and to retain, hire, and retain the people that they need. As you can imagine, the air traffic controller's job is very difficult. There's a lot of pressure. It's very challenging, and you need the right people with the right training to do it. So there is a inherent, I suppose, difficulty in finding the right people and keeping them in the job for a consistent period of time. We want the best and only the best. But the FAA has set up bottlenecks that make it very difficult to keep people trained, to get enough people on staff. Their failure rate is pretty high. There's a bottleneck in Oklahoma City, and it just takes a long time from start to a qualified controller. Literally takes years. And if you don't address that in the front end, as they haven't done, it takes a long time to catch up. So between the infrastructure improvements that we hope we see with this $12 billion that was given to the FAA just recently, hopefully that hiring and better infrastructure will help fix this. Maybe we can get away from floppy disks and Windows 95.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And as you mentioned, just accentuated there at Newark based on those serious outages. They're also dealing with construction on a runway and some trauma leave from different controllers as well. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, he did seek out this probe about this relocation. Is there anything more in your eyes that he can do to potentially help this outside of some of those, like you mentioned, trying to get more air traffic controllers on? Is there anything more Duffy can do?
Well, I hope that $12 million is spent appropriately. $12 billion. It is an important initiative. Now, we've been in the next generation improvement program for the FAA's air traffic control system since 2003 or 4. So it's already been 20 years, and we have spent billions of dollars with not a whole lot to show for it, in our opinion. So hopefully that money will be more targeted, better spent, bring the right infrastructure into play, and it will take time. This is not something that happened over the last year or two. As I mentioned, it's been a couple of decades long decline in the overall program, the overall services, and the number of people employed. So it's going to take time. I think they're on the right track. As you mentioned, the runway that was under construction is now serviceable, so that's helped Newark. The communication has been upgraded. We actually have some fiber network going there now. So improvements are being made. There is some optimism that we're over the hump as far as the worst of it goes in Newark. But there is this system-wide issue that we really have to address. And again, hopefully that money and the proper leadership, which really has been failing, will come to the fruition, and we'll actually make some progress here and keep the sky safer.
Yeah, and of course, Newark dealing with some delays, and they're kind of limiting some of those arrivals, departures until the end of the year based on some of these problems. Randy, anything else that comes to your mind in terms of this? This is very fascinating in terms of the aviation world. Anything else that we're missing?
Well, I hope we're not missing anything. That's, of course, what led to the DCA accident with the midair collision. It was a failure to look at the data. The data was there. The thousands of close calls, near misses, the decrease in separation that's really required. Those numbers were there. The data was known, but it was not looked at. So somewhere this data goes off into space, and no one took any action on it. So hopefully that's another piece of what's going on here, that the FAA is reviewing overall. Where are the bottlenecks? Where are the problems? Where are the hot spots where we've had near misses, close calls? And what can we do to mitigate those now so that we don't have another disaster like we had in DCA? That's what I hope is going on, as well as improving the infrastructure and hiring more people.
Yeah, obviously the tragedy there and some of those serious outages that could have been tragedies in Newark. All right, Randy, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time, your insight, as always, here on Live Now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anytime.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll talk again very soon. Great conversation there about this new U.S. agency probe into the relocation of those airspace overseeing Newark International, Newark Liberty, after those serious outages as the radar went black for what might have felt like a lifetime there earlier this year. I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this.